Good afternoon. It's Thursday, 3 February 2022. My name is Pieter du Toit. I'm assistant editor at News24 at the Capital on the Park Hotel in Sandton, where we are covering day 3 of interviews for the position of Chief Justice. Joining me, of course, Karyn Maughan, News24 senior legal reporter. Karyn, quite a somber atmosphere here in our little boardroom at the hotel because of quite a remarkable morning. Remarkable attacks on Judge President Dunstan Mlambo by Julius Malema and Dali Mpofu, making quite wild and serious accusations without offering any proof and really casting a pall over this whole process. What did you make of the morning, and what do you make of the quite clear political attacks on Dunstan Mlambo?
You know, it's deeply unfortunate that legal professionals seem to not grasp the principle that if you want to put allegations to a person, you need to come with substantive findings, substantive evidence. We have an extraordinary situation where Dali Mpofu, and to some extent Julius Malema as well, followed through by some of the other commissioners, have chosen to confront Dunstan Mlambo with what they have described as rumors that he sexually harassed women who wanted to act as acting judges. There is no substance to this. There is no record of any complaint having been formally made. And of course, you know, Mlambo is now in a situation where he's literally being forced to address allegations and rumors that he has no idea where they emanate from. It's literally like me saying to you, oh, you know, I think you're a murderer, with absolutely no...
Can you defend it?
I mean, I'm not a murderer. I'm not a murderer. I'm not, you know, how do you... I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable to me that legal professionals would do this with any kind of genuine bona fides. And the worst was Dali Mpofu after this trying to say, well, you know, there are these rumors and we just need to get you to address it.
Almost an opportunity to clear your name. It's almost as if he's saying, I'm giving you the chance to clear your name.
And then we compare it, of course, yesterday to the SCA President Mandisa Meyer being asked about why she absented herself from the vote on Judge President John Hlophe, why she chose not to get involved in that, and revealing this long-standing friendship relationship with Hlophe being her big brother, in circumstances where that would be a real issue. Yes. About under what circumstances do you recuse yourself? In circumstances where there are these long-standing relationships between many judges, are you going to be the type of person? It was just let go. But apparently it's okay to then, and to her discredit as well, because I think she would have addressed those allegations and if been given the opportunity. But instead of, now we have this thing where Dunstan Mlambo is being asked to shoot at a moving target, the exact nature of which he doesn't know. There's question about, oh, how do you defend a constitution where you didn't play any part in the struggle? Also, I mean, where does that question come from? You're dealing with someone who has made multiple judgments, who has a rich and dense history as a legal professional, who has done a great deal for the courts, who has given some seminal rulings in regard to Mkolisi and Kasana as the head of the NPA, state capture, etc., etc. But instead of focusing on these things, where judgments are addressed, they're misguided, misquoted. I mean, it really is depressing.
I want to get to those judgments, but we've had 5 hours of Dunstan Mlambo sitting at the table answering questions, and there was a clear plan by Advocate Madonsela, Julius Malema, and Dali Mpofu to try and torpedo, from what I saw, Dunstan Mlambo's candidature. I mean, you spoke about the rumors, the allegations of sexual harassment without any evidence being presented whatsoever. And then Dali Mpofu throwing in the little tidbit saying, you know, there are also stories and rumors and allegations that your High Court division has been captured. How do you respond to that? I mean, it's as if this is a platform being used for political purposes, isn't it?
And then this thing about why do you always get white judges to sit on the bench? Is it because, the underlying problem of that question was the implication by Malema that somehow black judges can't write judgments, which, it's the same kind of underpinning, the logic that, causes him to ask, raises the question around, can a woman be the Chief Justice? Is South Africa, or must men step aside for women to be the Chief Justice? There's a incredible problematic logic here that seems to preface this idea that black judges are incapable of writing judgments themselves, a language which we've seen used by Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, and this idea in some respect that in order to support a female's candidature for the Chief Justice, you don't ask her tough questions, you patronize her, and you make her entire interview about her gender identity.
One of the highlights of the morning was, and I want to ask you about why they're gunning so hard for Dunstan Mlambo. I think you're going to give me a good answer to that question. But one of the highlights of the morning was Mlambo being harangued by Madonsela about judgments he delivered relating to CR17 Ramaphosa and to the public protector. And he said, we judge cases based on the facts in front of us. So it's very clear that he spoke very passionately about about his not being biased, and the fact that he writes his judgments based on how the facts present themselves in court. So tell me, Karyn, why is there this assault on Mlambo? Because on social media, Floyd Shivambu, Julius Malema's perennial sidekick, called Mlambo a thug, a judicial thug. So why this assault on Dunstan Mlambo? Why this revulsion in Mlambo from some of these actors on the JSE?
This has been a long-running thing. We remember, of course, in 2015, Gwede Mantashe, amongst others, saying that if rulings went to the Pretoria High Court, they were guaranteed to be against government. Pretoria is the seat of power in South Africa, as is the Western Cape High Court, because of Parliament being there. So oftentimes these crucial political issues are going to come before this court, and it is going to be required in the matter of the state capture inquiry, the appointment of Mxolisi Mkhasana, disputes with IPID, the police. I mean, we could go through the trove, but the Pretoria High Court is again and again and again required to decide on the most politically contentious matters. And often the matters involving the public protector go there first. We know the exactly, Ramaphosa, the CR17, etc. Now, Advocate Madonsela is a legal professional, but he seems to have really forgot fundamental legal principles when he essentially attacked used Democracy in Action, which is an RET-aligned organization which is litigated in support of Jacob Zuma, Busisiwe Mkhwebane. I think at one stage, even raising funds for her to pay the costs order in the Saab matter. So, the colors are very firmly aligned, and saying that he was incoherent because there was, according to them, a discrepancy between him saying that it was right for Thuli Madonsela to require and order the Chief Justice Mogoeng appoint the judge who would preside over the state capture inquiry because of issues of conflict with Jacob Zuma, and that somehow this was at odds with Mlambo's court in the CR17 matter, saying that it was inappropriate for Busisiwe Mkhwebane to order the speaker to take action against Cyril Ramaphosa because he had so-called benefited from CR17 funds, and also ordering the NDPP to investigate what she described as prima facie evidence of money laundering against Cyril. Now, Ramaphosa. Now, I mean, anyone looking at the law would say those are two completely different matters. The Nkandla case has made it clear that the public protector, in circumstances where it is appropriate, can organize remedial action to suit the circumstances that she's presented with. Her ordering that the Chief Justice take over that function can never be compared to the Busisiwe Mkhwebane ordering an independent NPA to investigate prima facie evidence of money laundering, which is a statement, and then report back to her, which is essentially her telling the NPA as an independent organization what to do. Also, Mlambo pointing out that Cyril Ramaphosa was not a member of parliament. It was completely unjustifiable, even on the basis of the finding of the public protector being wholly unsubstantiated. There was no evidence to substantiate the findings that he made, to order the speaker to take action against Ramaphosa in circumstances where the law and the Executive Ethics Code did not allow that.
So a lot of politicians, actors in the orbit of the RET grouping, broadly speaking, don't like Mlambo because they've repeatedly lost in the Pretoria High Court. So it's because they lose that they don't like Mlambo. That's what it comes down to.
And the EFF, of course, is one of the worst in terms of losses, taking L's on a regular basis in that court. And then also very problematically, when they lose, launching attacks on the judges who rule against them. Julius Malema, that great feminist from yesterday, attacked 2 female judges and questioned, who were the male politicians who were directing them when they ruled against him in the CR17 Pravin Gordhan, public protected disputes, which were both upheld by the Constitutional Court. This is not a circumstances in which Mlambo's judgments have been overturned. They have not been. They've been endorsed by the apex court of this country. But yet, Malema is given free rein by the chairperson in this JSC hearing, Gola Petse, to simply make arguments where he as a litigant is directly or has been directly involved. That is completely problematic and untenable, and it's inappropriate profoundly in any context, but particularly in a context where you're interviewing the most potentially powerful judge in South Africa.
Well, that's the question the topic that I think we need to talk about. Let's talk about this process. I mean, the JSC as a body was set up after 1994 to give to ensure that there's an independent that there is independent influence in the appointment of judges and Chief Justice. This is the first time we're doing interviews for the Chief Justice, and of course the President doesn't have to follow any recommendation from this process. He can appoint anyone he wants to in terms of the law, of course. But what do you make of the process thus far? I mean, today was a profoundly political day, as you said earlier. We have not seen commissioners probing this judge or previous judges about issues like judicial philosophy, judicial thoughts, or drilling down into controversial or complicated legal matters or judgments. We've not seen these judges being tested on their legal acumen, Karyn. And I would argue this is problematic given the office that is about to be filled. I mean, it's become such a fraught political process that the legal requirements is going a-begging.
I was speaking to some colleagues this morning, and I said that this was really not anything like, the kind of process we see in America with the confirmation of Supreme Court judges.
Yes.
It was more akin to, when you're voting for someone to head the matric ball committee, and the mean girls are up against the popular the popular ones or the nerds.
Yeah.
I mean, it had the dynamics of infantile, abusive political rhetoric that wasn't very smart. The attacks on Mlambo were blunt force trauma. If they were trying to assassinate his prospects, they were doing so with a frying pan repeatedly blows to the head. But it was messy. It was It was a distasteful exercise. And the JSC's been hammered by in the CASAC litigation for manifest bias, for manifest lack of impartiality, for incredibly poor questioning.
That was after that farcical interviews
in the Concourt in April last year. Now you would imagine, having had a situation where their interviews were so bad that they chose not to defend them in the High Court, that they would have learned something from this. But this is not the case. This is much worse. This is literally the worst experience that I've had of the JSC in all the years that I've reported on it. And it's absolutely tragic, considering the import of these interviews, the opportunity they presented for South Africa to have a sense of assurance that we were being led by a Chief Justice that enjoyed the full confidence of everyone. Instead, what we've seen is over kind of favorable interview of Mandisa Maya, which is not in her interests at all, and a complete distortion of a proper process against Dunstan Mlambo, which is ultimately about people within that room pursuing a decidedly adverse political project at the detriment of constitutional democracy and rule of law, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Karyn, what did you make of Dunstan Mlambo's responses? What did you make of the way in which he approached this very antagonistic line of questioning from a bunch of commissioners who were clearly following a political project? How did he handle it? And what can he actually do?
You know what? I think the irony of what's happened here is that in so doggedly and so clearly pursuing this political motive, they may have proved exactly why Dunstan and Mlambo is the right man for the job. Because anyone who could sit there without, I mean, if this had happened to me, to put it in the most polite way possible, I would want to murder someone. But he just sat there and he said, you know,
cool.
and I mean, imagine as a married man with a father of 4 children to be accused of sexual harassment rumors that have no apparent agendas, where that's going to be all that, you know, where you're talking about improvements that you want to make to the court, where you're talking about a vision, where you have clear objectives, and all of that is going to be absolutely, and we know that this is how news works, subsumed by these baseless allegations which are not substantiated in any detail.
So let's be very clear in our reporting, Karyn. We've discussed this. Let's be clear in our reporting.
There's no evidence to substantiate any of this. Imagine that being your experience, and yet you sit there with humility, you address the allegations, you answer every question, you don't respond with any kind of degree of rudeness or anger, and you try and address the claims as politely as you can. I think that shows real leadership, and I think a lot of people watching this process will actually turn around and say, you know what, this man has shown the leadership, has shown the courage, has shown the bravery, has shown the integrity required of a Chief Justice.
Lastly, Karyn, Dunstan Mlambo, strong candidate?
I think he is. I think that the level of effort that's been made to discredit him shows exactly why he's a force to be reckoned with. And we can only hope that when President Cyril Ramaphosa makes his decision, he makes so on the basis of the clear leadership that all of these candidates has displayed, but also with a kind of profound understanding of the political games that are being played here, and the ability to clear-sightedly look through it and to see really who is the best person to lead the judiciary at this time when the courts are in crisis and when bravery and integrity is required of whoever will step up to that plate.
I think you're right. Unfortunately, I think you referred to the blunt instrument earlier. I think hopefully the president will be able to see through the bluster, because I think South Africans can. Karyn Maughan, thank you so much. Good luck for the afternoon session. Let's see what the afternoon holds in. Dunstan Mlambo still has a couple of hours in the hot seat. Follow our coverage on News24.